yeah, I find these are really useful just to get to know guides. Like there's so many guides in Hago, and it's nice to get a little inside view and to get to understand everyone better, where they come from, just get to know them as people, and then also for me, I also want to like understand where are you based, what kind of tours do you do, what can I expect if I go on one of your tours. So I think that like those sort of things are really helpful. I'm going to ask Lily 5 questions, and then she's going to answer them. Any questions you want to ask, just keep them till the end, and you can ask whatever you want. But it's gonna be really fun. So I'm gonna switch the camera around now. Lily, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us about you, where you grew up. We just want to get to know you better. Often we see you on a tour, but we want to get to know a little bit about you behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'll just give you my whole life story in 5 seconds. My name is Lilian Céspedes González, but that's a very long Spanish name, so Lily is the way everyone calls me. I come from Spain originally, and we were actually in my hometown just last week, as I was just coming back from holiday there in Santander. So I grew up in Santander, and at the age of 18, I came to the UK to study in Winchester, which has been the town where I spent the vast majority of my time here in the UK. I had to unfortunately move to Southampton in 2017 because Winchester is very expensive. I mean, crippling expensive, and of course on a poor student sort of living lifestyle, that it was not sustainable long term. But Southampton is just 20 minutes down the road by train from Winchester, so I moved here and carried on with my PhD and everything else that I did since then. So that's me as a human being, and then it's me, the professional. So I actually started doing tour guiding in 2010 in Winchester as part of my bachelor's. Actually, it wasn't even anything special. I was just looking for extra credits to get something going while I was studying. They needed people at the cathedral for the tower tour. For those of you who have toured with me, it's quite a steep climb up there, and I was the only young and willing person to do it. So I started, and I loved it. I just loved sharing it with people and talking and getting people to engage with history, and that's kind of how my career in tour guiding started, almost at the same time that my career in history. And my whole point was that I would become an academic, but academia in the UK changed very dramatically when I started doing my PhD. It actually became really horrible and fierce. So it kind of got me to question if that was really what I wanted to do with my life. And eventually I decided that, well, I just love tour guiding so much. I had been doing it all the way. So I thought, well, I could just carry on doing this and actually do what I love and share history with everyone, which is something that I think as a historian, everyone should do anyway. And that's kind of how everything came together, from me being a small child in a little Spanish town to me here today, more or less, with a few jumps in between and a few, trials and tribulations. But that's more or less how it all started.
Can you tell us how you got into guiding, and then also how you found out about Hago? I'm really curious.
Yeah, so the guiding thing started, I knew about guiding already just from, traveling, really. I've been traveling since I was 2 years old. So by the time I came to UK and studied history, I had done many guided tours in my life. And I actually always thought it was a really cool idea. Like, I've never had problems acquiring information from like books or whatever, but I think it's different when a human being, tells you about something. It definitely helps you engage. So I really appreciated it as an art form, which I think is why when I saw that they were looking for people to train as tour guides and I was doing my degree, I thought, hey, that would be cool. I like being on the receiving end of that. So how would it be being on the other side? And that's kind of how it hooked me in. They also guilt tripped me in with mince pies. The cathedral tower tour guides are slightly different from the rest of the cathedral guides because a lot of them are bell ringers, and they have their own sort of bell ringing society, and everyone always brings food. And as everyone knows, I'm a huge foodie, and people just told me, hey, if you manage to make it all the way up to the tower, we'll give you some mince pies. And there I was, all the way up. looking for them. So yeah, it was very interesting. And I honestly didn't think I would have been doing this for such a long time, but I just fell in love with it. So I started doing it every single Saturday. Then it became every Saturday and Sunday when I was not in uni. And then I started branching out. I started guiding as part of an internship in the Hampshire Record Office, which is the archive here in Hampshire, in Winchester as well, helping putting some exhibitions together, engaging with the public. Then I moved properly as a proper tour guide to the university to help incoming students to tour around town, to tour around the university, particularly with international students, because, you know, when you're moving from somewhere else abroad, it can be a bit intimidating to, you know, link in with another culture. So I did that for a long time. And then I started getting involved with my masters in conferences and seminars. So more and more walking tours and things like that started coming together, to the point that I ended up with a full-time job as a tour guide at the Great Hall, where we have toured quite a fair few times, and then in other sites in Winchester. And then from that, I started taking people abroad to Europe, and here we are. I was actually in the process of creating my own tour guiding company before the pandemic started, but of course, the pandemic started. I was trying to finish my PhD, and everything sort of took a, you know, it stayed on the back burner. But as the pandemic developed and I kind of became aware of all of the issues that tourism had as an industry, I really started thinking about the idea of virtual tourism, because virtual tourism had been around for a while. It just wasn't very well executed. You know, the technology was not quite up there yet. So it had always been part of my idea to incorporate it into what we do in Travelusion Tours, which is making things accessible, affordable, and sustainable. And once the company actually came together, which will actually be in a year, in literally 4 days' time, which is really insane. I can't believe this has happened. Then I sort of, a month within that, I spoke with Sophie at Heygo, and she told me about the platform, and I thought, hey, that actually sounds really interesting and like something that fits within what I'm looking to do. So let's give it a go. And it took me a while to actually get on, because I was finishing the last corrections for my PhD. So even though I had registered in like November or December, I wasn't actually able to go out and tour until February. But it was, yeah, it was kind of like really just good timing. I knew about Heygo before that. But it was just a matter of, you know, getting everything set and ready on my end to be able to join and sorting things out. And that's why I'm here, and why I actively try to be on Heygo as much as possible, because I do believe that this platform and everything that you and I and everyone else does in here has so much value for everybody. You know, it's not just the ability to share our knowledge and our point of view about the world with other people, but I've met some really cool people through this. You know, I've met you. I've met so many guides. I mean, Jeannie and I met and went from coffee. And I consider Jeannie a friend. She's always there for me. And I've met also so many voyagers throughout my time, which, you know, it really makes you connect with people. It's actually really gratifying to make those human interactions. It's really nice. So yeah, that's how I ended up here, and why I carry on doing as much on Heygo as I can, because I really love it.
Mm. And now there may be some voyagers that you have just joined, and they haven't been on your tours. Can you just tell us about where you're based and what kind of, like the tours that you do? Just for somebody that maybe has come to Heygo, maybe just joined a few days ago, and they want to get to know you, but maybe they want to know more about the type of tours you do and what you do.
So normally based in Southampton. That's my sort of home base, but that means that I cover a few areas in the south of England. So Southampton, Winchester, and Portsmouth are places where I do tours regularly, not just on Heygo, but on face-to-face. And then because of how tourism works and whatnot, I end up going to places like Stonehenge and London quite frequently. And when possible, I try to incorporate tours for that as well, virtually. So for example, next month, I'm going over to London to do one of my walks in London, which is a little bit different from other guides there, just to give my perspective on things. So normally it's around the sort of south of England, and my tours are always rather historically and cultural based. That's, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I have a PhD on. That's my life. So that's the majority of the tours there. And because I do move a fair bit, and obviously my family is still in Spain, I do sometimes go abroad and we do tours of similar characteristics abroad. But aside from the sort of walking tours from a history perspective, I also do a fair bit of home tours, or what we call home tours here on Halo, which are really like webinar style presentations. And that's something I'm also really passionate about because, for me to be able to share something that otherwise only university students or academics would be aware of with the rest of the world is super powerful. It's all about empowering people and giving them access to knowledge that otherwise they wouldn't have and that they certainly deserve to have. So I'm very passionate about putting those out there, and I have a fair few sessions around different topics, either related to my PhD or to my academic career or things that I'm interested in general. And then we have the other, like the miscellanea tours, which always have a cultural aspect to them, but tend to be a bit more relaxed or a bit more hands-on. So we've done a few food history tours where we cook something and we learn about the value that that item has in that particular culture, or where does it come from, which is really fun. They're a bit more interactive and chill, which I think is nice, and I'm preparing a few more for this winter. And then I also have some other tours where I don't have anything to do about history or whatever. Is all for the sake of awareness of fibromyalgia.
Would you just tell us more about what fibro is and all of that?
Of course, yeah. In fact, I'll be very happy to tell you because tomorrow I have my monthly fibro awareness and safe space tour, of which I'm really, really proud of. So fibro, as we normally call it in the overall, day-to-day lingo, is actually fibromyalgia. And it is a chronic illness of a neurological capacity. So that means that the illness is rooted in our brain connections. So essentially what happens in my brain or in the brain of anyone that has fibromyalgia is that the information doesn't travel correctly. So we end up with three main symptoms, which are chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and something that we call fibro fog or brain fog, which is a cognitive issue that essentially doesn't allow you to process things properly. So I have that. I've had it since I was a teenager, actually. So by the time I came to the UK, I already had fibromyalgia. It's just I didn't know I had it. And it was diagnosed to me back when I was 25. So I've been living with a proper diagnosis and adapting to this for the last, 6 years of my life. And obviously that's shaped the way I see the world. It's shaped the way I do things. A lot of people see me when I'm touring that I wear these special gloves. It's not because I'm trying to be cool or edgy. it's because they actually help me hold the gimbal. Otherwise, I would be completely unable to do this. And the reason why I came up with the tour was because I do advocacy for different groups that try to raise awareness about fibromyalgia, one of which is Fibromyalgia Awareness, and another one is Fibromyalgia Action UK. So every year for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, which is on the 12th of May, I run a fundraiser, and I do the same for different events. And thinking about what other people had done in the platform, particularly our colleague Ian Bransbury, in case any of you don't know him, he's another tour guide in the UK. He did a session on autism, and I thought, you know what? It's really powerful to be able to share not just our struggles, but the way this can affect our profession and anybody in the world. So maybe I should do one for Hego for Awareness Day. And that's where it started. But as I did that session, I realized how many people in this community also have fibromyalgia or another chronic illness. And it felt nice being able to see those people come together and realize they were not alone and that they were understood and completely loved. And it really, really made me think, you know what, we need more of this. The world is a very horrible place right now, so we need more of this. So I decided that I was gonna, instead of doing a whole week or different sessions in 1 week to raise awareness, I would keep a rolling one every single month, just to give people a chance to learn about the condition in case they wanted to, but also for people who have it and that have similar conditions to come together and know that, someone's got their back. So that's what the session originated as, which was really just awareness and fundraising. But I learned so much from the Voyagers that day that it genuinely made me think, you know what, this is worth doing.
Great. I've just got a couple of comments and a question or two. Somebody said, Lama said, looking forward to your tours because I'm currently learning Spanish.
Oh, awesome.
And actually, I didn't know this, so I'm going to just ask. Gregory says, being in England and Spain, growing up in Spain, is English your first language? Because he was just yeah, his comment.
My first language is Spanish, but actually, in total, given the amount of years I've been in the UK, which is my whole adult life essentially, and the fact that I've been learning English since I was 4, I've probably spent more, like if I was to clock it, I've probably spent more time speaking English throughout my life than Spanish. That's also because sadly here in the UK, I don't know many people that speak Spanish, so it gets hard to, talk in my own language. I only rely on my family to be able to, talk every so often. But no, Spanish is technically my first language, even though I don't speak it nowhere near as much as I speak English these days. But, I started learning English, like I said, at the age of 4, because in Spain in general in school, you start very early. But my parents had a very clear idea that for the modern world, people needed to learn languages. So my first English teacher was a very cool Irish lady from Dublin. And I did not understand a word of what she was saying at the age of 4. So it was very impactful. And because she was so determined to make us understand, I really took on to it very well. Plus, she always gave us sweets.
We've only got like a minute left, but Gregory also says, what has enabled you to overcome your fears and attempt to do things that don't always come easily? Or like I know I always feel like always so nervous before I start a tour, and
Me too. I completely even though I've been doing this for over a decade, I can get quite sort of not nervous, but I guess a bit of adrenaline runs through. It will always resonate with me something that James, the Roman reenactor that does some shows with me, says. Because he does Roman kit, but also gladiator fights. He's actually one of the best in the UK and Europe. Even though he's been doing it now for God knows how many years, he always also get nervous, and he always says, that's a good thing. That means you still care about what you're doing. The day you do it without even feeling a slight hold your breath kind of moment, that's the day you've kind of lost your drive or your passion, or that you've gotten too comfortable and therefore you've stopped growing. So I completely relate to what you're saying, but I think I've always been a very, I'm sure this comes across in my tours and whatnot, but I've always been a very sort of headstrong and determined person. I don't like people, nature, the universe telling me I can't do something. So I just always push myself, sometimes at my detriment because of the fibromyalgia. I know I need to be careful sometimes, and I know sometimes I maybe tour more than I should. But I don't know, I guess to me, the worst feeling in the world is being scared. Stopping and not doing things because you're afraid of what may happen, of what people may say about you or whatever. To me, that's the worst thing ever. I was quite severely bullied when I was younger, and I've always been an advocate for, letting people be themselves, because the bully attitude comes from fear, comes from, I don't understand you, or I don't like you, and therefore I'm going to try to censor you and push you aside, which I think is also something that I became quite aware of because of, again, Spain's history and whatnot. And I just was determined that no matter how scared I would ever be, I would never let that stop me. So courage, just sheer blind courage and and headstrongness is what gets me through. Because, we only have one life. If you don't take chances, and I don't mean, be reckless, but if you don't take chances and if you don't try to overcome the things that set you back, you may regret it later on. And I don't want to, have that situation where maybe I'm old and in my last few days and think, oh, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I talk about this? Why didn't I talk about that? I think that would be very sad. So that's honestly what drives me through and what allows me to overcome things. Just the idea that we should all try to be as fearless as possible.